Hello and welcome to week 7 of Interest Sessions. My name is Katie Hamilton and I'm the Interim Assistant Director for Orientation Programs. You might have heard my voice before on our Flock Talk podcast, our mini episodes that we do every Monday. Today you will be introduced to a variety of campus resources and organizations that focus on the value of shared community. Our first interest session, UO Common Reading, connects students, faculty, and staff around a shared work, often a book that centers important campus-wide discussions. This year's selection is unique, and we are announcing it today for the first time. You're the first ones to get to hear about it. The Common Read team is very excited to have the opportunity to connect you in a way that creates community and connection for first-year students throughout campus, focusing on the goal: share a story, share an experience. Before we get started, students, please remember to use the Q&A function in the Zoom screen to share your questions. We will be able to answer them live towards the end of the program. For our parents and family members watching on the Parent and Family Facebook page, our staff, including those from the UO Common Reading team, will be able to answer your questions in the live chat. And now, I'm happy to introduce Julie Volker-Morris, Director of the UO Common Reading, and Sarah Coates, UO Common Reading's Student Coordinator. All right, hello, Julie and Sarah.
Hi, good morning. It's great to be here. I'm Sarah Coates. I'm the Student Coordinator for UO Common Reading. I work with our social media, respond to questions and communications, and support the selection committee throughout their decision process. We're really excited to have you all here today. Personally, I had a pretty non-traditional undergraduate experience, so my favorite part of working with first-year students is getting to see all the different paths they take while they're here at the U of O. Today, we're going to cover some of the ways in which you can be involved in the program, some of the changes we plan to make this year, and what we plan to accomplish going forward. Follow along with us today and make sure to send in your questions for the live Q&A portion later, as well as to get them answered throughout the presentation. Julie?
Thanks, Sarah. Good morning, everyone. I'm so happy to be here with you. I'm Julie Volker-Morris, the Director of UO Common Reading, and I'm also a Senior Instructor and the Career Services Director for the School of Planning, Public Policy, and Management here at the University of Oregon. I have to tell you that I love working with first-year students. I have taught a number of first-year interest groups, freshman seminars, and other classes that engage with first years, and I find that the energy, enthusiasm, curiosity, excellent questions, and really just joy you bring to our campus is so amazing and wonderful. You make everything fresh and new for us each year, so thank you for that. And I'm happy to be on this journey with you around our Common Reading for the 2021 academic year. I will note to you that a decision was just made about the Common Reading program as of Wednesday night, so you may find me referring to my notes a little bit more than I may normally, just because I want to stay on track with this really exciting and great information and program so that I convey to you the information that you need around that, and we'll be able to answer your questions appropriately as well. So let's dive in and talk about what Common Reading is, how it functions, and what it means more to you as a first-year student on campus. So Common Reading is an opportunity, as Katie said, for our community to come together. This is faculty, staff, and students who share an experience around a selected work, often a book, but not always. And distribution to incoming students occurs in the fall every year. This is to you. It arrives to you this year in a digital format that will be shared. We're trying this for the very first time and are very excited about this. Typically, we would share the item with you physically during our meetings on campus at Introduction, and obviously that has shifted our environment, and we're excited about trying out this new opportunity. We were thinking about it anyway, and with all things COVID related and keeping everyone safe and healthy, this is a great opportunity for us to turn to this. Others on campus, faculty, staff, and other upper division undergraduate students, graduate students can also receive copies of the selected item every year. And then I would suggest that it's one of the really wonderful things about having this shared experience among our community as a campus is that it's an immediate connector for you. You know about the shared reading and what its selection is, and you see someone else from your residence hall or in a class or perhaps your academic advisor who is also engaging with that book, and you can immediately have a conversation about that in some way, even if it's asking something about what they liked or perhaps they didn't like about that selection. Then I would note that other ways to engage with the common reading are that certain faculty on campus choose to use that selection directly within classes, and this happens through all first-year interest group programs, whether in the classroom or in co-curricular setting, happens throughout upper division courses of various kinds and various disciplines, and even at the graduate level. And then you'll further see that there are a variety of events and other related programming opportunities in which you can engage during the academic year. Common reading is always about building community, enriching curriculum, and enhancing the research and engaging the research on our campus. We continually select contemporary topics of important interest to our local campus as well as to national and global issues, and you'll hear more about what we're doing this year related to that. We always encourage student investment, involvement, participation in multiple kinds of ways. We'll provide some examples of that. And it's probably important for you to know that each year it's not just Sarah and I here selecting the common reading, but we have a committee of faculty, staff, and students, as well as additional advisors and stakeholders with whom we consult each year. And nominations are solicited on a specific theme throughout campus, and so anyone, again, faculty, staff, or student, can make a nomination based on the theme, and then the selection committee does a lot of research and review of these materials and makes a decision based on that review. So in final summary of this introductory portion about UO Common Reading, I'd like to let you know that we hope each of you as a first-year student has a unique and personal experience with the work that helps you in starting your university life as well as leading you throughout the rest of your time here at the university in your ways of thinking and understanding and interpreting the world. So I'm going to turn to Sarah to provide a brief history and further sense of UO Common Reading and how it's enacted on our campus.
Yes, so I'm going to talk just a little bit about the history of Common Reading and how we got to where we are today. So initially, Common Reading was something that began within the Clark Honors College, for those of you who have heard of it, back in 2009. And the goal of Common Reading back then was to allow students to articulate and defend opinions in a debate format, especially because it was the first introduction to college debate that many students had had at that point. So that was why it was important to them. 5 years later, in 2014, we actually picked up Common Reading as an initiative for the university at large. And to an extent, it serves the same purpose it did back in 2009 of encouraging debate and conversation, as well as allowing students to connect within the college environment. Common Reading is now coordinated by the Division of Undergraduate Education and Student Success and has had support from the Office of the President, the Office of the Provost, the Division of Student Life, the Division of Equity and Inclusion, and the Center for the Study of Women in Society, among many others. As our program changes and grows, we hope to serve as much of the University of Oregon community as we are able to. We believe that the positive impact of this program is frankly immeasurable, and engaging with important content in a meaningful way is of broader importance than it seems at first blush. This program has tremendous potential to bring students together and give them common ground, basically, some connection to share as they come into the university setting for the first time. We also try our best to incorporate student feedback, both from the student members of our selection committee that Julie mentioned earlier, and from the student body at large after each year. In 2018 and 2019, the selected UO Common Reading theme was transborder, transnational, and we had some really fantastic books to exemplify that theme. First, we had The Best We Could Do, which was a graphic memoir by T. Bowie telling the story of her family's choice to flee Vietnam during the US-Vietnam War. And just this last year, we had Under the Feet of Jesus, which was a fictionalized telling of lived experiences of Latinx migrant workers by Helena Maria Viramontes, and that was really exciting as well. Together, these excellent pieces covered issues of healthcare, immigration, environmental justice, community, identity, and heritage. Each year, the selection is a work that we hope will resonate with as broad a swath of people as possible, while still recounting very personal themes and stories that everyone can connect with. We did actually have the opportunity to host both authors of those two works that I just mentioned, and they worked with students who had the opportunity to read the books through the program, which was very exciting. They gave talks, met up with students for meals and art gallery tours. They answered student questions, taught workshops, and even signed books in the time that they were visiting the University of Oregon. This program is a great opportunity for students to think critically and engage in a way that differs from maybe the traditional classroom book experience, as it's broader and honestly has a lot more flexibility, so it can be used throughout the year through a wide variety of courses and be just generally a much more immersive experience for students. Next, I'm going to talk a little bit about who engages with UO Common Reading in terms of programming and places you might see it coming up in your first year experience. So as many of you may know, when students begin their time at the University of Oregon, many of them choose to register for a first year interest group, or FIG, as you can see on the screen. FIGs span a wide variety of topics, but many of them choose to work with the Common Reading pieces. So any number of topics from anthropology to women and gender studies incorporate the UO Common Reading into their curriculum. For those already planning to register for a FIG, or those who are already registered for a FIG, it can be a great opportunity to both get involved with Common Reading and meet people in a smaller group setting. It can also be an interesting way to learn about the topic through a lens that you find personally fascinating. For example, if you're a science major, you could take the Science and Society course and have a chance to work with UO Common Reading selection in that way. So something that's just a little bit more personalized as opposed to a more general experience. In addition to FIGs, there are ARCs, or Academic Residential Communities. ARCs are a housing initiative to help students find community through shared interests. And ARCs incorporate UO Common Reading programming as well. So it's a great way to immerse yourself in the material and really have sort of a more integrated experience with Common Reading. Common Reading can also be a great way to engage with students in other ARCs or FIGs, just sort of common ground, a great tool for building relationships with other incoming students, especially this year. For those of you who are not planning to take a FIG or an ARC, there are plenty of other courses that work with us too. You can keep an eye out for a list coming as we continue to update. As Julie said, we've had a lot of changes just in the last few days, so we're definitely working to get everything updated for all of you. And not only do first year courses work with Common Reading, but upper division and graduate level courses will incorporate Common Reading into courses as well. So you might end up seeing other Common Reading materials in future years too, as you continue your journey at the U of O. You might read and discuss the selection introductory writing course and understand it in one way. Then you'll discuss it in a music, global health, law, or business course and see it through a completely different lens. It's really a great way to learn about the selection through many interdisciplinary angles and in ways that you might even find unexpected. In past years, Residence Life has also incorporated UO Common Reading into their activities. And of course, Clark Honors College continues to work with us. Finally, you will find staff such as academic advisors and academic counselors integrating the Common Reading, and people who do fundraising or conduct research for the U of O will read the book alongside their work here. And as you can see, 92% of incoming students participate with UO Common Reading in a class, residence hall, or co-curricular experience. And by working with our partners throughout campus, we've really made it available through a huge variety of avenues, and most of you will have a chance to participate with it in some way or another. And I'm going to turn it back over to Julie to talk about participation.
Thanks, Sarah. We just wanted to make sure you had a sense of some of the ways that students have specifically engaged in the Common Reading in the past. And as we mentioned before, obviously, and as Sarah nicely described, a variety of classes through which you can engage with the Common Reading, understand it from a wide variety of disciplinary perspectives, and begin to understand the interdisciplinary nature of a particular reading that is selected, because we think that's as important as understanding it from one disciplinary lens. Also, again, the opportunities to meet with authors as well as artists and scholars who visit our campus, whether in person or virtually, and campus experts who are here already working on the themes that Common Reading supports each year. Students have also made the program their own in many ways, such as developing art exhibitions, whether in residence halls here where we are right now in the Herb Memorial Union or other places on campus. They have presented talks about the specific themes associated with a selected Common Reading in conferences, classrooms, other types of presentation venues. Of course, a variety of discussions and learning opportunities among peers, whether that's casually in the residence hall or through very specific student groups who have offered learning opportunities, such as when Tibui was here with The Best We Could Do the other year, the Vietnamese Student Association and the Associated Students of Pacific Islanders Union hosted learning opportunities to think through more fully the kinds of topics and themes that were associated with that work and how it affects students on our campus and relates to their interests and advocacy that they are seeking. And then, of course, finally, I want to highlight that students throughout the year conduct research and or develop creative work associated with their own interests in the selection and further develop those research pieces, those creative artworks or musician compositions that they then present at the Undergraduate Research Symposium in the spring. And this is a wonderful opportunity, especially as we're now able to provide an award for the best presenter of a UO Common Reading affiliated presentation of that nature. Obviously, you can tell that the Common Reading program is most successful when students are excited, engaged, and participating in a variety of ways. And we love the ways in which students are choosing to participate and always encouraging more. So as you have ideas, please continue to share them with us. Sarah's going to talk a little bit more about some past events now.
Yes, so we have touched on some of these already, such as author visits, but we've also been fortunate to be able to host and participate in a number of other kinds of events throughout the years of Common Reading. A lot of the selections that we've made in past years have had layers of cultural significance, which has been a great opportunity to attend both local and university events, such as local salsa dance nights, which is a really fun opportunity, and Dia de los Muertos activities, and they host those at the public library as well, which is very exciting. We've also been able to participate in student art shows, as was mentioned a little bit earlier, as well as complementary art exhibitions curated and hosted by the university's own Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art. We've had lectures by authors, professors, artists, musicians, and experts in a variety of formats, including, for those of you who are on the busier side or just like to multitask, the Lunch and Learn format. The earlier mentioned student symposia have been a really rewarding experience for many who participated. This year, the symposia was moved into an online format, but many were still able to participate, and as was mentioned, we gave out that award, which was a very exciting experience. We've also shown films, which is an activity we hope to be able to continue with this year in conjunction with other university programs as well. Naturally, our events will be changing a little bit just to safely accommodate incoming students' health, but we plan to offer as large a selection of events as we are able, and we hope to see you all at one or even all of these events. And I'm going to turn it over to Julie to talk a little bit more about the changes we'll be seeing this year.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Yes, let's get to the heart of the matter as we start to think about this year. As some of you may know, we originally had a different selection for the 2021 Common Reading program. And we have been listening throughout the summer, especially since June, to a variety of voices and calls on our campus to reimagine what we're doing with Common Reading this year and respond to the national and global conversation on Black experience and anti-racism, particularly anti-Black racism. And so as a committee in involvement with stakeholders, we have chosen to go that route. And we know students care tremendously about these issues, as just observed in the faculty perspective sessions on anti-racism here this summer during orientation programs. We know that you care about these issues deeply. You're asking smart, intelligent, thoughtful questions that are impacting the work that all of us on campus are doing. So thank you for that. We also know that all the social justice FIGs, the first year interest groups, for example, have filled before any others. So another example of ways in which we know that students really care deeply about these issues. And students have noted in the past that Common Reading is especially expert at building conversations around important topics. So we want to continue that, obviously, this year. And so shifting this approach with Common Reading is requiring a thoughtful, careful change. Sarah and I know from our white female perspectives that we are not the experts in this area. So we have been consulting with a wide variety of stakeholders on our campus, including partners and individuals and groups such as the Division of Equity and Inclusion, the Multicultural Center, the Black Strategies Group, faculty from Black Studies, the Black Cultural Center, and many, many others who are highly invested in this work and this theme and helping us think through the way that we're approaching our work in UO Common Reading. So through these conversations with campus stakeholders, we have determined that we are not actually selecting a book this fall. We will be making a different choice to help with telling stories, and that part of Common Reading that's about a shared experience and sharing a story in very many ways, and expanding that to be about sharing stories. So we know that this fits very well with our program already, because Common Reading has always been about more than words on the page, but about how we hold those dialogues together. As Sarah described, the original founding of Common Reading is a place for discussion, debate, colloquial engagement. And of course, it's an opportunity for us to build even stronger, more lasting partnerships than we already have with our program, and builds on our history of reading alternative works such as the illustrated memoir mentioned earlier. Also, we've featured our now National Poet Laureate, Joy Harjo, who not only is a poet, but musician and artist. And so we want to continue those kinds of opportunities that we've had in the past with this coming year. So fall will be a bit of a departure for us, but not entirely. And as always, will be given the care and attention that it needs. So I realize I'm still leaving you a bit in suspense, so bear with me before I reveal the thing that we'll be doing this fall. But I want to first talk about the theme that we have selected, and then how that leads toward the work that we selected. So we will be focusing on a theme of listen, learn, and act. This focus really undergirds the values and the principles and really overall guiding framework that we have within our program, within our Division of Undergraduate Education and Student Success, and the work that we want to see enacted throughout the university. This is about integrating equitable outcomes for all our students and colleagues into the everyday work we do as a division and institution. We're part of a series of programs and initiatives on campus that help to hold up the questions, conversations, and partnerships and opportunities for the UO to engage in addressing racist policies and practices and finding solutions around those problems. Common reading is a significant and positive symbol of community engagement and participation, and we want to uplift that and center our current program to help with challenging and addressing racism in this particular place at this particular time. The theme of listen, learn, and act allows us to think of new approaches and ensure we are including multiple voices and perspectives in our work. We know there's no singular story, there's no singular experience. We also want to listen to a variety of lived experiences. We want to value Black humanity and our common humanity, and we want to work toward anti-racist work and end racism in all forms. So all of this requires us really being comfortable with being uncomfortable. And common reading has been doing that for some time. We have looked at works that show the violence to our Native communities in the United States. We have looked at dismissive and abusive practices around farm laborers in our nation, and the lack of care that often exists for individuals who are war refugees or refugees of other crises. So through these types of challenging topics, Common Reading connects campus members around what we have in common. Again, part of the nature of our work, encouraging everyone to engage and show up where they are, how they are, who they are at this particular moment in time, and acknowledging that all of us are learning and growing together to do better. It creates opportunities for important conversations, even when we're uncertain where the conversation will lead or how to proceed. Sometimes we need to sit in that discomfort so that we can listen, and in some cases to be heard in ways that we have not before. Common reading has always been about the conversations and actions that can come out of the discussions and dialogue, even more than understanding a work as its literary nature or structure, though we encourage those types of analyses and interpretations as well. Additional work, whether that's research and study, activism and advocacy, or teaching and learning, follows because of the conversations that Common Reading helps to uphold. So UO Common Reading really contributes to listening to others, to knowing better, and to doing better. So what we're hoping to achieve this year are using the Listen, Learn, and Act framework to guide our discussions and activities throughout the 2021 year. And so this is part of the reason that we're going to be choosing and have selected a non-traditional work than what some may think of in terms of a common read. We're going to be building this year's work from the ground up rather than trying to reformat our existing content or structure. We look forward to going on this journey with the whole university community. As we've been talking to the various group of stakeholders I mentioned before, there's great excitement and enthusiasm for how this program can operate and raise up other voices in a different way. And for us to listen, learn, and act reflects all we really hope to promote with this program, not only this year, but in the past and for the future. We hope students who choose to participate will be able to use what they've gained from UO Common Reading to enact meaningful change in both the microcosm that is this place of the University of Oregon, as well as within our broader global, regional, national, and other places that we inhabit in the world. We've also selected this theme to acknowledge that none of us have all the answers, and we need to learn and grow together on a continual basis. The program will center literally on listening through a podcast to stories of Black experience and be supported by supplemental teaching and reading sources, as we always offer. This will also include events and activities in partnership with the Division of Equity and Inclusion, the Multicultural Center, the Black Studies program, the Campus Museum, the Science Literacy Program, and many, many others, as well as departments such as art, planning, public policy and management, Indigenous race and ethnic studies, psychology, history, and so forth. Topics for action that will occur will include voting and suffrage issues, addressing replacement of murals and statues on our campus, renaming Dee, now known as University Hall. What are all these things in our local place that can happen, as well as those that we might want to think about more regionally and nationally? We'll be forming meaningful connections and actions, especially with students who have had a variety of different experiences at the University of Oregon, because that's always what exemplifies what we want to achieve as a community through UO Common Reading. Our selection process for this year has been quite rigorous, and the whole committee has given generously of their time to make this change as strong and important as it needs to be. So I think this is the time for you to hold a mini drum roll for yourself, as you are the first public audience to hear our announcement for the coming year. So this year, the 2021 academic year, we will be listening to the 1619 Project podcast. This was developed by journalist Nicole Hannah-Jones, who formerly worked at the Oregonian paper out of Portland and has been working with the New York Times, specifically the New York Times Magazine, to develop this project a little over a year and a half now. And it is further supported by curricular materials from the Pulitzer Center. We will be encouraging, of course, readership of the supporting materials as well as the podcast, but again, we want to focus on that listening aspect of our theme this year. And the 1619 Project, if you don't know about it, is an ongoing initiative from the New York Times Magazine that was launched in August 2019, the 400th anniversary of the start of slavery in this nation that still continues to impact us and our country today. As Anna DuVernay, director of When They See Us, 13th, and other films on race, wrote, "The 1619 Project is a staggering, transforming endeavor. The most dazzling array of thinkers on slavery's true impact on this 400th year of bondage. It's not a must-read, it's a whole experience." And that is really the nature of why we chose this, because there are so many ways to engage based on your own particular interests, curiosities, desire to connect, as well as the variety of interdisciplinary connections and specific disciplinarity that can come out of the work. And that's because 1619 asks historical and contemporary questions related to freedom and liberty, to social justice and inequality, to living in a stratified society that affects healthcare, economics, civil rights, and multicultural, multiracial democracy. All of these questions are interwoven, along with many, many more, into this project. And it's not though the podcast is set as a 5-part series, the rest of the project is ongoing and being updated on a regular basis by New York Times staff as well as the Pulitzer Center. This project has received accolades as well as challenges, and so this indicates to us that it's worth our time and effort as an academic community to really dive into this in deep ways. What are the historical questions? What are the contemporary questions? How do we understand them in unique ways? And this is further, its importance is further highlighted, as Hannah-Jones noted. I know when I talk to people, they've said that they feel like they are understanding the architecture of their country in a way that they had not because of the 1619 Project. We need to look at our own architecture here on our campus, in our community, in our curriculums, both hidden and stated. So obviously, 400 years of oppression will not be solved by Common Reading selecting this work at this place in time, but we are committed to doing this work and holding these conversations in partnership with all the campus community divisions and departments I mentioned earlier, as well as throughout the divisions and departments that we have not yet spoken to, and always partner with us on a regular basis. We're dedicated to that listening and learning about Blackness and Black experience in the United States for this year and beyond. This work is further connected to the University of Oregon as a whole, Our institution has been part of a system of racism. It has been and continues to be a majority white institution. As members of the campus, we need to be part of this system of change, acknowledging where we are and advocating for change that brings equity and justice. This aligns with activities such as the variety of students, staff, and faculty who advocate for both systemic and symbolic change on our campus on a regular basis, whether through letters to the editor, protests, student advocacy, work in student groups, in departments, and beyond. It also aligns with the President's program on recognizing our diverse history that features a champion team, really, for the UO of individuals with highly diverse backgrounds. Again, this aligns with the Provost's statement in the Anti-Racism Faculty Perspective series that you've been participating in Introduction. And we know that everyone on our campus is at a different place in this work. That's wonderful. Again, that's part of Common Reading, that we come to be together as we are at this moment in time, to listen together, learn together, be together, act together through reading, analysis, interpretation, listening, sharing. That is the way we'll be able to address problems of racial inequity and injustice through this particular program. And it's another reason why the 1619 project is an important selection. It offers a multiplicity of voices, perspectives, and histories. It gives an opportunity to incorporate feedback and show a continued commitment to working for meaningful change within our campus community. So that's probably a lot to take in at the moment, but I want to turn it to Sarah to share some ways that we are looking at actually engaging with programming and related activities around the 1619 project selection. Again, this will be ongoing and changing and forthcoming throughout the year. So what Sarah will provide with you is an overview of some of the ideas that we're working in partnership with Division of Equity Inclusion, the Multicultural Center, Art Museum, etc., to activate this work on our campus.
Yes, I actually had the opportunity to work with the selection committee as they went through the process of going through so many different suggestions, and this was the piece that rose to the forefront for us, and we're very excited to be able to work with it this year. However, we understand that as a podcast, it's a fairly radical departure from what we've done in the past. So with the potential changes we'll be seeing going forward, we're looking into new and different ways to allow students to interface with one another that they haven't potentially had before in the past. So initially, we have a tentative rollout of a Goodreads page to promote open forum discussion. Goodreads pages can be subdivided into many different categories, so you can talk about different topics and you can have discussions with different people across the page. We can also use the platform to give information about events, make reading and listening recommends, and hear student feedback, as well as give you those reminders for events that you'd like to attend. We plan to open this page to student participation early in the fall as everyone is arriving. Typically, Goodreads is used for books, however, there is cross-functionality, so we will be able to use it even though we've selected a podcast this year. Even though we will be changing to a podcast, as I mentioned, it's important to us to retain the book club feel that UO Common Reading has had in past years. It's just a great way for people to connect and make those relationships, and it will also help to create a smoother transition for everybody who's coming in this year. Our plan is, of course, to still offer programming for students throughout the year, but it may look different than it has in the past. Specifics will be forthcoming, and we plan to talk more about opportunities and events in just a minute, but first we'd like to share a few of our goals with you. Currently, we're working with the idea of creating a series that will run throughout the year of discussions, lectures, or viewings. Not only will this allow for a more nuanced conversation, but hopefully it will ensure that students don't feel overburdened as they're all adjusting to the beginning of the year and a new school, acclimating to a new environment, and potentially even a new style of learning. Also, integrating our program throughout the year will better align with our theme of listen, learn, and act. We believe it would be more beneficial to have something ongoing than just a one-time experience, such as the benefit of selecting something multi-part, such as the podcast, rather than a book. Courses will still work with UO Common Reading, but we hope to be able to offer supplements so that students can personalize the experience and really get what they're looking to get out of it this year, which we hope will make the program better for everybody involved. Those who have the time and interest can be more hands-on, participate in a lot of events. Those who are perhaps busier can pick and choose as they'd like. We're also looking into working with the Multicultural Center to plan some coordinating events. This year, they'll be focusing on activities and actions related to voting and suffrage, public policy participation, campus symbols, and naming, as Julie mentioned earlier. They're currently also exploring the idea of a multi-part series throughout the term of video viewings and discussions, which we think would be a great companion to our program for those interested, and overall an excellent opportunity for students to learn more about the Multicultural Center and what they're working on right now. For those who may not know, the Multicultural Center is a hub of student activism, providing coalition space for many different organizations in one physical location, encouraging dialogue and cooperation in achieving common goals. They house student unions, host guest speakers, have a physical resource library, as well as computers for student use. The MCC is a great resource in itself for those looking to get involved in social change or even to find community. They also have plans to host other events that will be accessible both remotely and in person across the term, and we encourage everyone to participate as much as they are able and interested. Other event opportunities are also coming up. For example, since 2016, the University of Oregon African American Workshop and Lecture Series has connected national experts with U of O thought leaders and change agents. This series is hosted by the Office of President Schill, and it's focused on helping our campus to better understand the most promising practices in this area and utilizing their expertise to institutionalize more effective environments, practices, and policies. Some of the speakers will be delivering large campus addresses, and some of them will work with smaller groups to raise awareness, hone existing practices, and in some instances, even develop new skills. The Black Student Task Force has also been a huge part of promoting and shaping this series, and we thank them so much for their work on that. The university has also formed a committee on recognizing our diverse history to recognize and educate people about the circumstances, both positive and negative, under which the University of Oregon was formed, and work to make necessary changes in our campus to better recognize the diversity of our modern campus. The Jordan Schnitzer Museum of Art also continues to host a related Common Seeing exhibition, as well as establishing an art fellowship, and it's a really exciting program. Many students have been able to attend, and authors have even come to take a look at those exhibitions, so that's been very exciting. Currently, the museum is closed to physical attendance, but you can certainly learn more about it on their website. And while I have the opportunity, I would just like to encourage you all to visit it once it reopens again. It's a fantastic place, and they have some great exhibitions. So I'm going to turn it back over to Julie to talk a little bit more about why Common Reading.
Great, thank you, Sarah. Yeah, just before we go to the Q&A portion of our presentation, I just want to reiterate a little bit of why we think this is important for you to participate in Common Reading. Because the underpinning foundation of Common Reading is always about connection. Connection among students at all levels, connection among peers, connection between faculty and students, between staff and administrators and students, and among all of those groups. Connection to contemporary issues, connection to the University of Oregon in a variety of ways, and connection to maybe a new understanding of yourself. Connection through the student involvement that we mentioned in a variety of ways. As always, we hope to encourage curiosity and conversation and action. What do you care about? How do you bring that forward to us and to peers and colleagues and your faculty in the disciplines that you're pursuing? And additionally, in this time of COVID, we think it's more important than ever to be providing a wide variety of ways for students to engage and build community, particularly virtual settings, as well as ways that we might be able to come together in person through some of these types of events. That's still to be determined, as Sarah noted, but we know that the social experience is important value and important part of the college experience, and we want to be providing that in as many ways as we possibly can. So bottom line, Common Reading is always about building community, enriching curriculum, and engaging research that you as students care about. So we hope that you are, find your way through the 1619 podcast that allows you to feel invigorated and enlivened in your studies, in your campus connections here, and further into the rest of your university life. So I think we'll turn it over to Katie.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Julie and Sarah, for presenting today and making that really exciting announcement about the 1619 podcast. I definitely know that I was excited to hear that as y'all were talking, and I could learn a little bit more about it. Unfortunately, we are running a little bit short on time, so we're only going to have time for one question for our live Q&A. But don't worry, any questions that you might have put in the Q&A, students will make sure that Julie and Sarah get those afterwards, and they will follow up. So one question for you today. Do you have any suggestions on creative ways that students can connect with each other about this material while practicing physical distancing?
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering, Sarah, if you might want to speak a little more about Goodreads, since that's a community that we know will be starting, and the ways in which connections and questions and conversations can happen in that space.
Sure, definitely. We're really excited to be rolling out Goodreads this year, and as I mentioned earlier, typically it's a platform for books, but we're excited to be using it for the podcast this year, and that's a great place for students. They can actually build their own discussion pages if they have specific topics they'd like to talk about, and we hope to get as many students as possible on that platform so that they can meet others and engage with the program in ways that they wouldn't have been able to potentially before. And then also that's a great place for students to recommend reading to other students, for us to recommend reading for other students, and for us to promote events that students can then attend in tandem. So that's something we're very excited about rolling out this year. As for other creative suggestions, keeping in mind physical distancing and practices with wearing masks, Eugene has a lot of beautiful parks, and as someone who's lived here for a long time, I would definitely say take advantage of that while the weather is still nice. Even into October, it can be really beautiful. So you could definitely meet up to talk about books that way, or you could even do a listen along to the podcast while you're there. So that's a great experience.
Nice. Yeah, we definitely have access.
I would just like to add that
sorry, go ahead.
There is also the opportunity to think about how you can read or you can add your own Goodreads space as well to host discussions for specific groups that maybe you don't want to have in as quite a public a forum as we'll be providing there. And then we will be sharing information both about the Goodreads, how to access the 1619 project, all of those kinds of links in partnership with orientation and the communications that they're sending with you. So be on the lookout for that.
Awesome. Fantastic. So clearly a lot of ways for students to engage with the podcast and have conversations, even if it is virtually or it is in a public space outside, taking advantage of all of the green space and the beautiful arboretum that is our campus for students to engage in these conversations. So thank you so much for highlighting some of those ways that students can still engage in the content, even though physical distancing might need to take place. Thank you both once again for presenting today and sharing all of that information with us. Students, as we wrap up, just don't forget to complete your reflection for this session by logging into community.uoregon.edu. Additionally, if you have any questions whatsoever about introduction, please check out our website at orientation.uoregon.edu. You can also contact us anytime with questions that you have at orientation@uoregon.edu, or you can text us at 541-346-1159. As always, feel free to tune in to our podcast, Flock Talk, for weekly updates from myself and Cora and some of our campus departments. And we're so glad that you could be with us today. Thank you once again, Julie and Sarah, and have a wonderful day.